The economy in the United States seems very strong. The country as a whole has much more money than it did in the past. Prices for houses are at their highest point in history, and many big companies are doing very well. From the outside, America looks like it is booming. But this success is not for everyone. One group is being left behind: young people. While the country has become richer, young adults have not shared in this new wealth. Since the year 1989, older Americans have seen their part of the country's money grow a lot. At the same time, the part for people under 40 years old has become much smaller. It has been cut almost in half. This has created a big and serious problem for the new generation. For the first time in 200 years, young adults are in a difficult new position. A person who is 30 years old today is often poorer than their parents were at the same age. In the past, each new generation usually had more opportunities. They were able to build a better life than their parents had. This promise was a key part of the American dream. The American dream is the belief that anyone can work hard and become successful. It is the chance for a good life, to own a home, and to support a family. But for many young people today, this dream feels impossible to reach. The old rules that helped their parents and grandparents do not seem to work anymore. The promise of a better future is fading for them. 2. A place to live. For many people, the American dream means owning your own home. It is a place to build a family and a future. But for young people today, this dream is becoming very hard to reach. Buying a house is more expensive than ever before. In 1985, an average home cost about 4 times what a family earned in a year. Today, that number is much higher. A house now costs 7 times a family's yearly income. In just 40 years, it has become almost twice as hard for a family to afford a home. One of the biggest reasons for this is simple: there are not enough houses. The number of people in the U.S. keeps growing, but cities are not building enough new homes for everyone. In many places, current homeowners do not want new houses built near them. They worry it will change their neighborhood. This means fewer homes are built. Compared to the time before the year 2000, the number of new housing starts has dropped by 30%. This creates a major housing shortage. When many people want to buy something and there is not enough of it, the price goes up. This is happening with houses all over the country. Another part of the problem is that older generations own a large number of the available homes. Americans over the age of 55 own more homes now than in the past, while people under 55 own fewer. Many older homeowners choose to stay in their homes for a very long time. In fact, nearly 40% of them have lived in their current home for at least 20 years. They have little reason to sell. Many have paid off their house completely, or they have a very low interest rate on their loan. So they stay in large homes even after their children have grown up and moved out. This keeps millions of houses off the market and away from young families who need them. At the same time, a new and powerful buyer has entered the market: large investment companies. These big firms use huge amounts of money to buy thousands of single-family homes at once. A normal person cannot compete with a company that makes an offer with cash. These companies focus on certain areas, and in some cities, they own more than half of all the rental houses. When one company owns so many homes, it can set the price for rent. This has caused rents to rise very fast in cities like Atlanta, Phoenix, and Tampa. The goal of these companies is to create forever renters, people who will never be able to save enough money to buy their own home. It is estimated that these companies could control 40% of all single-family rental homes by 2030. 3. Old ideas about the young. When people look at the financial struggles of the young, they often use old ideas as simple explanations. They might say that young people are just lazy. Or they might claim that young people spend all their money on foolish things. These ideas suggest the problem is with the young generation's personal choices, not with the economy itself. But when we carefully look at the available facts, we find a very different story. These common beliefs about the young are simply not correct. First, let's examine the idea of laziness. Are young people not working as hard as previous generations? The average work week today is about 34 hours long. In 1985, it was 35 hours. This is only 1 hour less per week, a very small difference. This small change cannot possibly explain the huge financial gap that young people face today. They are working hard, almost as much as their parents and grandparents did. Next, let's consider their spending habits. A popular belief is that young people waste their income on things like new smartphones, daily expensive coffees, or world travel. It is true that they spend on experiences and modern technology. However, they also spend much less money on other things, like physical goods such as cars, clothes, and furniture. This balances out their overall spending. The main reason their costs are so high is because of essential needs. The prices for housing, healthcare, and getting an education have all increased dramatically. These are the biggest costs for any young person starting their life. In fact, if we take the high cost of housing out of the numbers, young people today actually spend less money than older generations did. They are also responsible savers. Studies show that young adults today save a larger part of their income. This proves they are being careful with their money for the future. Finally, some people claim that young people just are not skilled enough for today's jobs. This idea is completely unfair and untrue. Each new generation has become more educated than the one before it. A higher percentage of young people are finishing college and getting degrees than ever before in history. So, the problem isn't their work ethic, their spending habits, or their skills. The real problem is that the world they must build a life in has become much more expensive. 4. Learning costs too much. People often say that young Americans need more education to get good jobs. They are told that going to college is the best way to build a good life. Young people have listened to this advice. Each new generation has more education than the generation before it. But there is a big problem with this idea today. While college is still important, it has become very expensive. It also does not help people as much as it did in the past. The promise of a better life through education is becoming harder to reach. About 40 years ago, the cost of college was much lower. For example, in 1980, a 4-year college program cost around $10,000. Today, that same program costs nearly 3 times more, at almost $30,000. Why did the price go up so much? One main reason is that universities have hired many more employees who are not teachers. While student numbers grew, the number of administrators and other staff grew much faster. Universities are spending their money on new buildings and extra office workers instead of on education itself. Getting a degree costs a lot, but it does not guarantee a high salary anymore. In the past, a person with a college degree earned much more money than a person without one. For example, a household with a degree in 1980 earned around $100,000 per year. Today, they earn about $118,000. That is only a small increase. However, the price of that education grew by almost 200%. This means young people are paying a lot more for a degree that gives them only a small financial benefit. Because education is so expensive, most students have to borrow money. They take out large student loans to pay for their classes. This means millions of young people start their careers with a lot of debt. The total student debt in the United States is now more than $1.7 trillion. This heavy debt makes it very difficult for them to save money, buy a home, or plan for the future. Also, many jobs that only needed a bachelor's degree before now require a master's degree. This forces students into a difficult cycle of spending more money for an education with less value. 5. Too much debt. Life is very expensive for young Americans. Prices for important things like a place to live, healthcare, and education are high. At the same time, the money young people earn is not growing quickly. For many, their pay is not enough to cover all their costs. Because of this, young people must borrow money. They need to get into debt just to live a normal life. This is a very big problem for their financial health. Young adults now have more personal debt than any generation before. This debt comes in many forms. For people in their early 20s, credit card debt has increased a lot in recent years. The money they borrow for cars has also gone up. For the few young people who can buy a house, mortgage debt has grown significantly. This is happening while they are earning less than the generation before them did at the same age. It is very hard to save money or invest for the future when you must pay back so much money every month. This debt makes it difficult to get a good start in life. It is not only young people who have a lot of debt. The U.S. government has a huge and growing debt too. For many years, the government has spent much more money than it gets from taxes. This has created a national debt of over $35 trillion. This number is so large, it is hard to imagine. The last time the country's debt was this high compared to the economy was during the Second World War. This shows how serious the situation is. This massive government debt has real effects. Like a person with a credit card, the government must pay interest on the money it borrows. These interest payments cost the country hundreds of billions of dollars every year. This is a very large part of the government's budget. That money cannot be used for other important things, like improving schools or health care. Instead, it just pays for past spending. The huge national debt is like a heavy weight that slows down the country's progress and limits its future options. So, who will pay for all this government spending? The difficult truth is that the next generation will. Many benefits from government spending today go to older Americans, but they will not be the ones who have to pay back the huge debt. This massive debt is like a hidden tax on the future of young people. They are starting their adult lives with a national financial problem that they did not create. This makes their own financial future even more difficult. 6. The leaders are old. The people who make the laws in the United States are called leaders. They work in the government and make very important decisions. But there is a big difference between these leaders and the average American. The leaders are much older. The median age in America is 38 years old. This means half of all Americans are younger than that. In the government, however, the average age is much higher. This was not always the case. When the United States was a new country, its leaders were young. The men who created the country are called the Founding Fathers. They had fresh ideas for the future. For example, Alexander Hamilton was only 21. Thomas Jefferson was 33. The average age of the men who signed the Declaration of Independence was 44. They were building a nation where they and their children would live for a long time. Today, the situation is completely different. In the U.S. Congress, the average leader is 58 years old. In the Senate, the average age is 64. Many of the most powerful politicians are in their 80s. For example, President Joe Biden is 81. These leaders began their work in government a very long time ago, before many young adults were born. This large age gap creates a serious problem. Older leaders make decisions about a future they will not be a part of. They vote on new laws and spend money that adds to the national debt. But young people will be the ones who have to pay this debt later. It is difficult for someone near the end of their life to make the best plans for a future that is 50 years away. How can they truly understand the challenges that young people face today? Some leaders have even died while in office. They were making decisions about a future they would never see. 7. A broken system. The problems for young Americans are big and serious. It is very hard to find a good place to live because houses and rent are so expensive. Education at college also costs too much money. This means many young people start their adult lives with large student loans. At the same time, their pay is not going up very much. This makes it difficult to have a good life. On top of personal debt, the government has a lot of debt. This is a big problem for the future. The leaders who make these important decisions are also much older than the average person. These problems are not separate. They are all connected and work together. Think about it like this. If college is expensive, a young person needs to borrow money. This creates a lot of debt. Then they finish school and look for a job. But the salary is often not high enough to pay back the loan easily. They also need a place to live, but houses are too expensive to buy and rent is high. So the money they earn goes to rent and paying debt. It is very hard to save money or think about buying a home or starting a family. Every problem makes the other problems worse. It is a difficult cycle to escape. Some people blame one political party for these issues. They might say it is the Democrats' fault. Others will say it is the Republicans' fault. But this is not the full story. Both parties have been in power over the last few decades. During that time, life for young people has become more and more difficult. The problems continued to grow, no matter who was president or which party controlled Congress. This shows that the issue is bigger than just one party's ideas. The problem is not about being red or blue. The real problem is the system itself. The rules of the American economy seem to be broken for the new generation. The system gives more benefits to older people, often at the cost of the young. It taxes the future of young people to pay for today's spending. The promise of America was always that if you work hard, you can have a better life than your parents. For many young people today, this promise feels empty. The system that worked for past generations is failing them now. 8. The end of the dream. The American dream is the famous idea that everyone can have a better and richer life. But for many young people today, this dream is disappearing. For them, it feels more like a nightmare. The promise of a good future is not real anymore. It seems that for the first time in the country's history, the new generation will be poorer than their parents. Life has become much more difficult. For a long time, people believed if they worked hard, they could reach important life goals. They could buy a house and start a family. These were normal parts of life. Now, these goals are very hard to reach. Young people often cannot afford to buy a home because prices are too high. They have a lot of debt from college and from paying for basic things like rent and health care. This makes it difficult to even think about starting a family. The old path to a happy, stable life is closed for many. They see that past generations had these chances, but their own chances are now gone. The system itself seems unfair. It gives benefits to older people, but it creates serious problems for younger people. For example, the government spends a lot of money on programs that help the old. This spending creates a very large national debt. Young people will have to pay for this huge debt in the future through their taxes. It is a heavy weight on their lives and their future. The older generations get help now, while the young generation gets the big bill later. This is not how the system should work. This is not a problem of one political party. It is not just a Democrat problem or a Republican problem. Both parties have been leaders in the government for many decades. But during this time, life for young people has only become harder and more expensive. The real issue is not which party is in power. The problem is with the whole system. They took away the dream of starting a family. They took away the chance to own a home. They spend money on programs for the old and tell the young they must work forever. For years, the young generation has been quiet. But after losing so much, will they continue to accept this future? Or will they finally stand up and say, enough is enough? What do you think the next generation will do?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.